Alright, what I'd like to do here today is take this old book and turn it into a sketchbook. You can find these upcyclable books, little thrift stores, all that kind of stuff. I come across these cool books and I always want kind of a cool, unique sketchbook. So I'm going to take out the inside, bind some new paper of my selection, and I'll kind of show you that process along the way. Firstly, we'll take some Canson mixed media paper. It's 98 pound. There's 60 sheets in here, so you can really get a lot of, once you fold them in half and then cut them in half, fold them in half this way and then cut them in half. Especially for these size books, you can usually get quite a few pages out of it. I also like this heavier paper. You can use a really wet marker. You can do some watercolor. It's not like watercolor proper paper, but you can get away with it. So I give you a lot of options for sketchbooks. That's why I like it. You can obviously pick whatever paper you want. The only thing is, if you're going to use a thick paper like a watercolor paper, you're going to want to use a bone folder, and make sure to score the paper where you want to fold it and then fold it. Otherwise, sometimes the paper will kind of crack apart when you fold it together. So bone folder is always great to have. I'm not really going to need it for these, but when we make a watercolor sketchbook, you'll see this guy come out. Now you got your sheet. I'm not going to worry too much about folding it in half exactly perfectly, because we're going to be cutting everything down. Everything will kind of be resized as we need. I do use the bone folder. It kind of makes it nice to get everything crimped the way you want it to. Make sure you got a nice tight fold. And then we'll cut this in half and you'll see what I'm talking about. You don't have to use this. I primarily use a ruler. When I first started doing these, I'm doing a lot more paper now, so I had a friend that had this paper guillotine. Don't worry about equipment. Use the simple stuff you have. So now we've got our first 2 pages. We can see how everything fits in there. So we'll have to cut everything here. I like to have all my paper cut, folded and cut. That way I know exactly how much paper I'm gonna need here. But this gives you an idea of how everything kind of sizes out. This is usually my preliminary, just to make sure the paper I have fits the book that I want to make things to. So I know that I'm using the most of my paper here, and these 2 are the same. So I know that it's gonna all fit together. So I'll tear the rest of that paper out and then get it all folded and cut. And then I'll come back when I'm ready to start putting paper in. All right, so I've got my stack of paper here. There's a few oddballs in here just from miscuts that I had from other projects. So you can see the way things are looking. Right now that's looking a little thick, but once it gets pressed down, that'll be pretty close. We can kind of fine tune that once we get it all set up, but now we're moving on to the next step. So the quick and easy way that I like to do this, kind of like how we measured everything in the very beginning. I'm going to tuck this paper in as far in as I can get it. Now I've got 2 lines here to make. I'm going to make a mark, that top space and that bottom edge, these 2 edges. And then we can kind of fudge the margins a little bit once we have that cut out. and we'll make a mark. We'll know exactly where these are, and then we'll be able to cut the rest of our paper that way. So with this, I'm going to give a little bit of room. I know that that's hanging over just a bit, but that's okay because we don't want the paper to be the exact size of the book cover. We want it to be just a little bit smaller so it's protected by the cover. So I'm going to move this little guy out to the 8. This is so when I'm cutting my paper and I don't have my measurements, I'll be able to see. And then, you know, we might be able to get away with a 5. I'm going to say just 1/5. So there we are, our first signature. We can bring it in just to make sure everything's looking good. I mean, the book cover covers it. We're getting a little bit bigger than the book that's in there, but there's a lot of overhang. I mean, I feel pretty good with that. I'm going to cut the rest of these pages up and we will move on to the next step. All right, next, we're gonna get a little dangerous. The biggest thing you wanna do is make sure that you're getting right here along this seam. You don't wanna get too close to this edge. This edge here folds in when you bend the cover. So you just want to make sure you're not getting too close to the spine of the book. It should cut pretty easy. If you're getting a lot of resistance, I would maybe reconvene where you're cutting. That's not so bad. Pretty clean along there. We'll flip it over and do the other side. That embossing's really nice. The other thing I try to do while I'm have this body block text cut out, I'll look for a copyright date. Oh yeah, I've got this 1906. That's pretty nice. There's also color in here, which I don't see a ton. That's really gorgeous. So I try to keep these pages in the body. Just because, or I'll put them in with the other sketchbook just to kind of keep part of the history of the book with it. I mean, if this was on this page, I would keep this as well, but I'm going to be gluing over this. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to keep that, but I try to keep as much of the history of the book, or if there's any really beautiful illustrations. Sometimes they have really lovely block prints in here. So I'm gonna flip through this and just make sure that there's nothing in here that I feel like really belongs with the book. So I was flipping through and there's this really beautiful, ornate ender. So this is the last story. This is the last thing in the book. So I think I'm gonna keep that because that's just so unique. This red text is really cool. I've never seen that before. I'm guessing they probably did a red print and then a black print for everything. I'm not super up on my all my printing history, but yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think I'm going to keep that with the sketchbook itself, just to kind of, again, preserve some of that history. I hold on to these block texts too, just because I don't have the heart to fully throw them away, so you never know when they're going to come back into use. But I'm going to take those pages out, and then we'll put some tape on this binding. So I've got my pages cut out. This has the copyright date. It also has the title. It's just a really nice Gothic font. This has the copyright 1906. Also looks like a history of publishing. I'm not 100% sure what that is. So I'm gonna set these aside with my text block here, and we'll put those together later on. So at this point, I try to reinforce the spine. You can kind of see how floppy it is. There's not a lot. Sometimes you can even see a little bit of light. You can see here, there's a little bit of light coming through. Obviously, this bit of the spine here is getting a lot of wear and tear, just in the life of the book. Also, a lot of times the edges, the tops and bottoms of the spine also are getting pretty chewed up, depending on how the book is, how much use it's getting. So what I'd like to do is take some of this binding tape. It's kind of like a duct tape, but it has a bit more of a fabric to it. And I am going to put a block of tape here, a block of tape here, and then I'm going to run a couple parallel to the spine just to give it a bit of reinforcement. And I'll do that now. Try to get that as close to the edge without it being too visually offensive. I think that's looking pretty okay. I'll press everything too once I get it, so I'm going to do this on the other side. So for this, I like to run it just a little short of the spine. And then I do double it up. I have to cut this just a smidge shorter. So I'm gonna do this one from the middle here. And this is the second one, and it's a little more of a above shot, so you can kind of see how I'm laying it. So I'm going to try to have these overlap a little bit here. Probably could have had this up a little bit to match that, but I think I'm okay with that. Well, that tapes down pretty hard too, so I guess I'm gonna have to be okay with it. I like to take the bone folder and just press everything down, make sure it's all really settled in. And now, you might not be able to see it, but you can feel, once you do that, you can feel how much that is. It just feels more secure than when it was all loose. All right, so these are mostly what you're gonna need. This is the most accessible way of doing it. I do have, this is actually a flower press that I got a few years back, and I've been using it to pinch books in. And then, you know, you can get a variety of widths because they have the wing nuts. I made one of these on my own, a longer version for doing multiple smaller books, but I know not everyone has one of these. The first time I made one of these, I actually just used binder clips. I use these for like watercolor, all kinds of stuff. And I know more people are going to have these laying around than flower press, so let's start with using these, and you can kind of see the most accessible way, or what I think is the most accessible way of kind of getting started. I'm going to have the folded edges. So this is your open edge. This is going to be your spine of your book. That's going to be, I'm going to tap that down, make sure I'm getting everything settled in. And then I'm actually going to take, while it's pressed down, I'm going to take this and kind of wheedle that in and make sure that that's crimped. So now that's kind of holding everything in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I've got these two holding everything kind of in place. Now I'll take this guy. He can get the widest out of these two, and we will crimp this over the edge. And then I kind of bring these up so that it's trying to make a similar shape. Because when you glue that, these are also gonna, you don't want them flaring too much, just because you're trying to get everything to be somewhat symmetrical. It's one of those things where it's not all perfect, but I mean, that looks pretty good. You can see it bulges a little bit there. I wonder if I raise that up, if that would change that at all. I don't think so, not too much. But I'm okay with this. I think this is a good place to glue. We'll put the glue here. I do two settings. We'll do an initial setting, and you'll see it kind of dries down onto the binding. And then I'll put another one over top of that. I'm probably being overly cautious, but I'd rather be overly cautious than have a book split apart. So this is the next step. This is the glue I use, Super Book Glue. I'd never really heard of it before. I'd watched a video someone used it. It dries, flexible, so it's kind of rubbery and flexible. I'm sure there's other glues that simulate it or do something similar. This one seems like it works pretty well, and it's not terribly expensive, but this is the glue I'm going to be using. I will set this up, and I'm going to do one edge here, and then I'll flip it and do this edge over here. Once these two are dried, then I can take this off and do that center area. But right now I'm okay with it the way it is. So I'm gonna glue this up, and we'll let these dry for a bit, and I'll be back once that's all settled in. I did just realize that I forgot to add our paper in. That's an oversight on my part. Got too excited trying to remember all the steps and make this all sequentially. So just so you know, in the future, when you see that these aren't in with everything else, I would have taken these and placed them probably in one of the second sheets, or underneath one of the second sheets. Otherwise, you can always glue these in flat. You know, you could glue these onto a page so that they're able to kind of lay in there flat rather than binding them in. The last few I've made, I've bound these in so they'd be glued in with this edge here. So you have options. This definitely isn't, you know, if I wanted to add these in still, I could definitely glue these in just to the physical pages in the book. So there's options. All right, things are looking pretty good. Our spine's looking pretty straight. You could see when we glued it up, things were looking a little tight. You can see here where the clip was, but I mean, everything's pretty smooth. I mean, there's some bubbles in there. I'm not worried about that. I would say that's looking pretty solid. We'll step on to the next step. All right, here's our book cover and our book. Let's just take a look to make sure, kind of get a visual of how everything's come together. I mean, that seems pretty solid to me. I like the way that's looking. Pretty good. Next, we're going to tape up this edge. It just gives a little bit of reinforcement to this glue. We'll put a couple of markers in there. And then after that, we will secure it to the binding itself, and that's pretty much it. So once you got it glued up, you're kind of on the home run. So we've got our spine taped up. This next step, I'm gonna take another piece of tape. This is probably a little bit extra, but I like, again, just making sure everything's secured in there, because I don't want things falling apart, especially as things get older. So I'm gonna use this to kind of tape it in before we glue it. So I'll do this one so you can see it, and then I'll do the next one so you don't have to watch me fumble with that. So you lay one parallel or flat, kind of crossing the spine. And then I just do a quick glue down. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Obviously that one's not. But just so that when I place this down, it's going to have something other than the glue of this paper holding it to the binding. Here, let me move so you can see it. So when that's down, it'll be taped in there. And that's gonna try to tape itself in. So I'm gonna do this other one, and then I'll throw you off to the next one. All right, I'm gonna set this in. I'm gonna make sure that everything sits right. Obviously, make sure that this is on top. Make sure I have all my orientations correct. You wanna make sure it's centered, as well as top and bottoms are good. All right, that's feeling good. Always a little nervous to lock everything down, but I think I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Exciting. Okay, we'll glue it in next. Lastly, we will glue everything in. So I'm just gonna use the very first page of this. I'm gonna use this to glue it in to our book cover. Couldn't remember the word for a second. I'm gonna put a bunch of glue here. I've used a few different glues. I'm just using an Elmer's. And I also have this paintbrush here that just kind of nice and wide to kind of spread everything out. We'll get that spread out and get it set. try to keep it a real thin layer so that there's a little wiggle room when you lay the page down, but it's not too wet that it's kind of sliding around. Try to get as close to your edge as you can. Set the brush aside. Oh, of course a bug flies in there. Sometimes if I'm really feeling brave, I'll just kind of close it. Try to line it up as best I can. And then I'll come in with, see, there's a little bit of sliding room. I've got this small roller here that I'm going to use to kind of press it down. And that's looking pretty solid. This is sliding around just a little bit, so I'm just gonna let that sit before I do that back side. But you can see that edge is looking pretty even. Our edges, top and bottom, are looking good. Just don't want it to slide around too much. So I'm gonna give that just one moment. All right, same thing, I'm gonna kind of close it down, let it fall where it naturally wants to. I mean, even that's looking pretty solid. Got a little bit of glue coming out the edges. The other thing I'm gonna do once everything's where it needs to be, I'm gonna let this sit. I'm gonna put a couple books on top of it. That's the other thing, is you wanna let it, you don't want it gliding around, especially while that glue is still wet and slippery. That's what I'm having a little bit of issue with right now. Things are kind of slipping around. I'm gonna roll this out just a little. You can see how much that slipped even just from that. All right. We'll let that press that. I'm gonna let that press overnight, and then we'll take a look at it in the morning. All right, here we are, next day. Things are looking pretty good. There's a little bit of rippling just from the moisture from the glue. You can see our bracer straps here. Looks like the spine has a good bend to it. It doesn't necessarily sit flat on its own, but if you had a couple bulldog clips or binder clips to throw there, you could definitely hold the spread open in the middle, which is nice. That's why I put so much reinforcement on the back of this. I wanted to make sure, I like having my sketchbooks be able to crack those spines, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm pleased with how that is. The only thing that I do always worry about is that, you know, this is gonna be our weakest point. That's why I like putting these bracers in and as much of that tape overlap as I can, just to give it a little bit of reinforcement. So, you know, when you're on your last quarter of your sketchbook, you're not having to worry about pages falling out or anything like that. But I think this is gonna make someone happy, or maybe even myself. We'll see. We'll see if I end up keeping it or keeping it for my collection. Right now I'm working on this one here. Just got a couple pages worth. Nothing crazy, but I hope you enjoyed the ride. I appreciate you coming along. Now we'll do some glamour shots.